This episode of Out of Spec Reviews is brought to you by Magna. More on that later.
Wow, every time I find myself in California, you have the ocean, the beautiful twisty roads, the mountains. It's hard to imagine it being much better. Oh, I guess you add a Porsche to the mix. That'll make it better. Anyways, welcome back to Out of Spec Reviews. Let's say you're in the market for a Porsche and you're environmentally conscious, but you just can't quite commit to battery electric. Where does that leave you? I want to say plug-in hybrid. That's where this comes in. The Porsche Panamera 4S E-Hybrid, or E-Hybrids in general. I'm going to be driving a number of E-Hybrids today to showcase some of the varying models they have and how they all kind of feel. I want to talk about the entire E-Hybrid lineup and what could be a forward environmentally thinking vehicle for someone who wants that electrification but just can't quite do battery electric. But first, a quick history lesson. The year is around 1900 when the Porsche family came out with the first, I guess, Porsche hybrid, if you could call it that. It was, of course, before Porsche was around as a brand, so it's not a Porsche. But it was called the Semper Vivus, which in Latin translates to always alive. I'm sorry to all you Latin enthusiasts if I butchered the pronunciation. But that was the original, per se, proof of concept and the first Porsche hybrid pairing. In the mid-2000s was the actual first Porsche car, which I think was a GT3R hybrid, which was really a showcase of how hybridization can be part of the performance enhancement of a vehicle. It's not just environmental, it can improve performance. Then, in the early 2010 decade, I think like 2010, 2011, we had the first Porsche parallel hybrid, which was the Cayenne, and then the Panamera followed shortly after. Then in 2016, was it? The Porsche 918 Spider, the infamous one everyone wished they could have. That was the true Porsche plug-in hybrid equals hyper supercar type thing. Of course, plug-in hybrids are now kind of the staple of their lineup with the E-Hybrid system. This is 134 horsepower added by an electric motor and a 17.9 kilowatt hour gross capacity battery pack. So today I want to show you the E-Hybrid model lineup. I can't do quite all of them. They literally have a lot of vehicles, but they have Cayenne and Panamera E-Hybrid, anywhere from kind of 4 up to Turbo S E-Hybrid, which I'm super excited about. That's a spicy monster, sharing some of the underpinnings of the Porsche 918 Spider. So let's jump right in.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Magna. Magna is a mobility technology company that is super unique because they touch every aspect of almost every car in the market, especially a lot of electric vehicles, and they even can produce vehicles from the ground up. Now, you may remember I shot a series just recently testing some of their new electric vehicle powertrains, so stay tuned for a lot of Magna content to come. We're going to be going in depth with some really interesting topics with these guys, and Out of Spec wants to thank Magna for sponsoring this review and tons of other videos to come right here on Out of Spec. We look forward to working with Magna to define and find out what the future of mobility looks like.
This is part of that kind of three-prong approach that Porsche is taking, which involves e-fuels, plug-in hybrids, and fully electric vehicles. This is, of course, plug-in hybrid, as I said, with the E-Hybrid. This is the Porsche Panamera 4S E-Hybrid, kind of the middle tier, if you will. They have a 4 and they have the Turbo S E-Hybrid. This is the 4S E-Hybrid. You have that awesome badge right there. And this is the Sport Turismo. So for all of you wagon enthusiasts, this is up your alley. I love this thing. Sport Turismo, in my opinion, is kind of the way to go. And why am I starting with the middle? Well, I think this is possibly the sweet spot for a lot of people in this market. First of all, that side profile is stunning. Anyways, price is tested right about $142,000. This packs a punch with its twin turbo V6 and the E-Hybrid system, which by the way is the same system on all E-Hybrids. It's not like the Turbo S gets a more powerful electric motor. It's just the gas, the combustion engine, that is more of the power. But taking a look inside, of course, it's Porsche cabin in its perfection. Love it. Absolutely love it. Love the glass roofs as well. And being a Sport Turismo, you have a bit more storage capacity than the sedan version. Not a lot more, but it does account for something, right? Of course, you have your EVSE, which is in here, and it is tied down because they assume you'll do some performance driving. Excellent. Porsche mobile charger. So that should allow you, I think, to do a NEMA 1450 plug-in as well as a standard household outlet, which can charge it up to, I think, 7.2 kilowatts. This is equipped with a 7.2 kilowatt charger. As standard, it comes with a 3.6. If you get the Turbo S E-Hybrid, you do get the 7.2 as standard, by the way. On this side, you have the charging port right there. The other side is in the same place as the gas cap. And then I'll show you underneath the bonnet. It's hot. 2.9 liter V6 twin turbo S E-Hybrid. That's warm. I may have been ripping it a bit to get up these hills, but how can you not? I mean, look at those roads down there. Anyways, let's go jump in. Really, really nice place to be. This is just like the standard cabin too, for the most part. It does have the 14-way seats, as I mentioned, which look nice. Of course, a shade, which you can, I think, adjust here. Yes. All the haptic buttons right here for climate control and such. Don't love that. It's like all piano black that you just touch and then leaves fingerprints and gets very dusty and shows the dust. Although if you're a Porsche owner, maybe you are meticulous about taking care of your car. I would hope so. In which case, you'll probably wipe it down at the end of every day when you plug in your plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. The interesting shifter that just kind of exists out of the middle there, volume scroll button, which is very nice haptic feeling right there. And then this can jump between things on the actual screen. And then of course PCM, which we all know and maybe love, I don't know, depends what you think. But in a moment, I'll actually get in the Panamera 4 E-Hybrid, which has the newer version of PCM. And Sport Chrono is standard on all E-Hybrid models. So, starting it up, it's toasty up here in the sunny mountains of California. Not the best backup camera. I'm going to knock that from the start. Sorry, Porsche, that is not fantastic. But honestly, are you buying a Porsche for the backup camera or are you buying it for the driving experience? So, starting out, the car always defaults to what can it do in electric. So it's in the e-power mode. I'm going to switch it to hybrid auto. The wheel on the steering wheel, the drive mode selector, can oscillate between 4 modes, which is Sport, Sport Plus, e-power, and hybrid. Then on the PCM, you can then go into hybrid auto and select e-hold or e-charge, which is pretty cool. E-hold will essentially hold the actual capacity of the battery, and then e-charge will charge up the battery during normal driving. Now, Sport Plus is actually the fastest way to charge the battery of the e-hybrid models. With Sport Plus, it will charge it, I think, up to 12 kilowatts, which is like twice as fast as you can on the actual wall outlets. But electric only, with 134 horsepower, you still have quite a bit of torque, and that's really all you need, especially for these canyon roads going downhill. Now, if you're going uphill and you're wanting to shred some canyons, this is not exactly the mode you'll probably want to be in. But again, that's not the point of the car. If you wanted a performance electric vehicle, that's when you would go Taycan. This is for the performance enhancements of electrification tied with combustion. One awesome feature is that the Porsche engineers decided, you know what, you should be able to launch it in e-power mode, which is awesome. So as soon as I find a straight patch, I'm going to launch it. But you have a nice e-power versus charge meter in front of you, so that can tell you exactly what you're doing when. But I'm still have plenty of battery. It's stating the E range of 29 miles. Now with the e-hybrid system, you do get, according to the EPA, 14 to 17 miles of range. As true with all electrified Porsches, that seems to be pretty conservative. With our Taycan range test, for example, we've always exceeded the EPA expectations. And with Kyle's city driving test in the Cayenne E-Hybrid, he also got much more than what was expected, like 25, 26 miles, something like that. And with the e-hybrid system, you do have that kickdown switch, which in a lot of plug-in hybrids is at the very bottom of the pedal travel, which at that point, the engine kicks on and you're in full power all of a sudden. Porsche does it in such a brilliant way where it's more like 30% of the pedal, which makes sense because you're using less than 30% of the power, really, of the whole car. And at that point, the engine will start to blend in and bring you the power you really need. So now I'm going to switch to hybrid mode, which will still try to prioritize electric driving, but also give you the power every time your foot dictates it. So that basically removes the false floor of the electrical powertrain, and that gets you, yep, and there we go, the engine shut off when I started coasting. Kicks right back on as soon as my foot goes down. So definitely more performance oriented, but now a tunnel's coming up, so I'm gonna switch it to Sport Plus. So with Sport and Sport Plus, the engine always stays on. It will never shut off even when you're coasting, because it is all about the performance of the car. Which is excellent performance, by the way. Plus with the adaptive air suspension, oh, it's so good. Yeah, this is, in my opinion, this is like all the car you would need. I mean, yes, Turbo S E-Hybrid is a whole other level, and you'll see that in a moment. But I will argue, I always like to play the middle child, or even the smaller child syndrome card of, what do you do with all that power? You can't always use it. Sure, in some places you can, take it to the track. But on these kind of canyon roads, if you're really pushing a Turbo S E-Hybrid to its limit, you're gonna die. The 4 E-Hybrid and the 4 S E-Hybrid, I think, are a really good blend of power for the car. And the turbo whine and spooling and blow off is just, it's addicting. With the V8 and the Turbo S E-Hybrid, you just hear more engine than turbos because the engine is just louder, and so is the exhaust. But with this twin turbo V6, you get plenty of turbo noise, engine noise, exhaust noise. I love it all. Oh, I am so happy right now. So another thing between Sport and Sport Plus is that Sport Plus will actually prioritize keeping the battery charged while giving you all the power you want. But with all the charging modes of the car, it will only charge the battery to about 80%. The last 20% you can really only do by plugging it in. That's partially because it can help protect the battery long term, and also it's just not that often when you would really need that extra 20%. If you're really worried about that 20%, you are the person who is plugging this car in every chance you get, at work, at home, wherever. But Sport Plus prioritizes charging the battery because it always wants you to have the most power possible, which requires having some battery at least, because of the electric component of the powertrain, which gives you that 134 dedicated horsepower. Oh, it does not get old. What's perhaps most interesting about this is the way the hybrid system interacts with the, in this case, PDK, Porsche's dual clutch transmission. So the Cayenne that Kyle drove has their Tiptronic automatic transmission. This has the actual PDK, which is pretty sweet. And the way Porsche has integrated this is having it between the engine and transmission. We'll put the electric motor between the engine and transmission. So it uses the torque conversion with the various gears in the transmission to allow for even more efficient electric driving, actually, taking advantage of those gear ratios. And even the Taycan has a 2-speed rear transmission on the rear axle, which is, that's like the only electric car that really does that. So I'm not mad. But what's interesting is the moment you try to shift it with the paddles, the engine will come back on. That's just a little strange. I kind of wish I could manually shift it myself while staying in the e-power mode, but I'm not too upset. The moment you let off the throttle, it jumps back into e-power mode and gives you all the electric juice you want. So just an interesting approach to that. E-launch activated. It did it. So definitely not blaring acceleration, but that's it gives you that jolty torque right off the line, which is great. I mean, I was able to pass everyone else at the stoplight, so it's still useful, and I love that the engineers felt like that was necessary. It's nearly like Easter egg mentality, but I will take it. I'm the type that would love a plug-in hybrid, but again, if you're not the kind who's going to be active about charging it, the plug-in hybrid may not be the best solution. That's with most cars anyways. With Porsche, their whole point of hybridization is, of course, environmental, but also performance enhancement. And that's where I think this could make a case for someone who even maybe never plugs it in. But if you can plug in your Porsche and have a commute that can take advantage of the 25-ish mile range, then this really is a compelling option. So I know this is mostly about the hybrid, the e-hybrid system, but I do like to mention in my discussions about cars the audio system, because that is a lot of the component of owning a car and driving a car for people. This is equipped with the Bose surround sound system, which is like the mid-level audio system for Porsche in general, and it's good. I will say when I got in the car, I was like, this is bad, but that's because Bose has all their extra things you can add onto it, which honestly, in a lot of cases, not all the cases, but in a lot of cases, this case makes it worse. The surround media and streaming makes it worse. Linear media and streaming makes it a little bit worse, kind of debatably. But the Sound True media and streaming, I do leave that on. And I have the bass and treble just edged a little bit upwards. And then CarPlay, I wish it took up the whole screen, but those are minor complaints. Honestly, I would love to experience the Burmeister sound system that Porsche can be optioned with. It is expensive, but I hear it's legendary. But I don't know if I'd even worry about the Bose system. I mean, sure, it can be good, but my ideal soundtrack would probably be something more like that. That's the proper sound. By the way, rear steer in a car like this, fantastic. Plus the steering ratio is just, Porsche has that nailed down so well. And perhaps a slight, very subtle difference between the Sport Turismo and the sedan Panamera is the Sport Turismo inevitably adds a tiny little bit of weight in the back end, which I think just gives it a little bit of a fun, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like 911 versus Cayman, where mid-engine versus rear engine. The rear engine, you have just a little bit more tail-happy capability, and that's what I feel in this car as well. It's just like a little bit more interested in kicking out. But really this thing just claws at everything. The all-wheel drive system seems really well tuned. When you really get on the throttle, it ramps up the front, but otherwise it's fairly rear-wheel drive biased. But that rear steer, I mean, that's just incredible. I should have filmed it, but I did a U-turn in town because I had to, and it was so great. Let's pop in here really quick, get a couple photos, call it good with the 4S E-Hybrid. I really don't want to give this back. So as cool and nearly perfect, in my opinion, as the 4S E-Hybrid Sport Turismo Panamera is, this is the Panamera 4 E-Hybrid, which is their entry-level E-Hybrid, at least from the Panamera side. We do want to talk about, how affordable can you get into this segment? They are all premium cars still. That's what Porsche is known for, some of the best premium cars in the world. But this is effectively what starts around $109,000, I think, for the E-Hybrid Panamera 4. This one is actually the Platinum Edition, which gives you a few extra goodies, including these nice wheels. That'll set you back about $115,000, $120,000. But air suspension is standard on all E-Hybrid Panameras. Wow, I'm so distracted by all of that. But let's talk about hybridization in general. As far as the market goes, Porsche, 1 in 10 of their models they sell in a given year are hybrid. 1 in 5 Panameras are hybrid. And that's the world market again. I don't have the data for the US right now. But it also brings the average age of a Porsche buyer down about 10 years, the hybrid ones do, and more females are into the hybrid lineup. So there is definitely a market for it. And honestly, I think I would fall into that market. This has all the neon accents from the E-Hybrid, although in a bit you'll see that you can delete that. And yeah, have the rear spoiler out, which looks kind of cool or kind of dumb. I don't know. But this great silver color and the red Bordeaux interior, like what Kyle had on the Cayenne he tested. Of course, you have the Platinum Edition. Looks nice, a little bit dusty, but you can see why. But really, really dig that interior. This also has kind of the 4-seat configuration, not the 5-seat, which means you get, I think this opens? Ah, yeah, you just like pull it open. Okay. Cup holders in the middle, screen right there. Nice. So you have all the same type of climate control back here, 4-zone, not cooled seats in the back on this one, but there are heated, which is great, and your own separate shade control for your rear shade. By the way, before we take off, hot dog, this new PCM brings the CarPlay to be full width, which is how it should have been. That just like solves everything for me. Now it's a proper instrument cluster and I'm ready to go drive. Looks good. I'm gonna try to be objective, but the fact that CarPlay is full screen may influence my review of this car. And we're off. Once again, starting in e-power mode. So I think I forgot on the 4S to mention power figures. That one has about 550 horsepower, 550 pound-feet of torque, about the same. I mean, huge numbers. That's not even the Turbo S. But so the 4 only has 450 horsepower, 515 thereabouts pound-feet of torque. That, I think, is plenty. They're both the 2.9 liter 6-cylinder twin turbocharged engines. So this one just has a detuned version, and I think that's still a lot of car. Kicking on the combustion engine there. Wow, yep, still plenty of power, honestly. So I love the 4S. I think it really is like a sweet spot in the middle. It has, well, that one happened to be the Sport Turismo. That's just like the way to go. But driving the 4 E-Hybrid is still an exhilarating experience. Kind of like the Taycan 4. Like, it's still a lot of car and still a lot of power. It's just less than some of the other ones. It's one of those things where if you really are chasing the most power, get one of the other cars. But if you just want a car to get you from A to B very comfortably with a nice interior, and you're intrigued about the electrification, this really is a compelling option and does undercut, I think, most Taycan configurations with the pricing. So that's something to be considered. But I think this is one heck of a bargain. I feel like you could get like this, the Panamera 4 E-Hybrid Platinum Edition. Gives you pretty much all the visual things that most people would like. It is a good bargain. I think it saves about 15% off sticker if you were to option all those things individually. So if you happen to like the package of options that the Platinum Edition gives you, that is a really good bargain. This is mostly bare bones other than the Platinum package and the rear steering, the rear axle steering, which just adds so much to the nimbleness of this car. Like, you don't feel like you're driving a really long sedan. And I love it. But Porsches just have some of the best steering feel. The steering wheel itself is super nice, perfect size. I will say I love the Race Tex like material steering wheel that they have in the like Taycan GTS Sport Turismo that I drove, but still like this. Sport Plus engaged. Let's see how it launches. The base, I don't know if they want to say base, standard Panamera 4 SE. Wait, Panamera 4 E-Hybrid, yes. Oh, shit. That's the base. It just like full send off the line, all the electric, all the power, just everything. It's like, here, you want a platter? just take it all. Oh God, that's so good. I came into this driving experience thinking, okay, Taycan is the best thing for me, but let's play with the plug-in hybrids and just see how they are. Now I'm like torn. Or am I? Did I just discover the two-car solution? A plug-in hybrid and a full electric car. That will cover all your bases. I still think the 4S E-Hybrid Panamera Sport Turismo, that's like the spec. I didn't love the dark blue color, honestly, for me anyways. I'd probably do something paint to sample, but this is compelling, especially at the price. Like, this feels like more and more of a bargain. The cheaper I drive them, the more of a bargain I feel like they are. But if you really just want all the power in the world, there of course is Turbo S E-Hybrids. All right, we've had a good look at Panamera, but we should also look at the Cayenne. Now, Kyle did an entire video with the Cayenne E-Hybrid Coupe, which looks pretty good. But I lean towards the boxy SUV, the real proper full-use SUVs, and Porsche makes them look fantastic. Definitely not very boxy, but sleek, sexy, got those 21-inch RS spider design wheels. Really like that. But yeah, this is the Porsche Cayenne Turbo S E-Hybrid. So again, unlike the coupe that Kyle reviewed, this one actually has the full roof that kind of goes out and over. Beautiful dark blue metallic. This one actually has an option that's unique because unlike all the other E-Hybrids, this has no neon E-Hybrid signature accent. And that's an option. It's an option to delete all the neon green, which is interesting. Not sure why, but that's an option. Everything is an option with Porsche. Nice aggressive exhaust. This does have the Porsche Sport exhaust, a little bit of a diffuser action going on there. And the big reason you might go for a Cayenne over a Panamera is, yeah, even more storage space. Not a ton more than the Sport Turismo. The Sport Turismo is definitely usable and has a lot, but this is, it's noticeably more. Once again, you have your Porsche charging cable latched to the floor so you can drive aggressively without this sliding around. And this has the brown interior, which is very brown, let's just say. Brown everywhere. If you're okay with that, you'll love this. I actually do like brown with black, how that contrasts. Not everyone does, I get it, but I think this looks quite good as an interior, honestly. I mean, look at these big grab handles. Same in the door. That's a really interesting accent. Love the design of this interior. What a car. This has a full panoramic glass roof. Still has the bar in the middle there, but that's because this can actually open, I think. Yeah, it can open. So that's pretty cool. Definitely more glass in the roof than the Panameras do, at least the ones I have been driving. But yeah, same type of thing, charge port right here. It is weird after being in all the Panameras and then getting into a Cayenne, you have to like get up into it. I guess it's fairly lateral versus the Panameras, you kind of drop into it. That's kind of a really quick look around. We'll see how the engine bay looks. This thing absolutely rips. 4-liter twin turbo V8, 670 horsepower, 663 pound-feet of torque. And unlike the Panameras, this has the Tiptronic transmission. So let's go see how that drives. Again, Kyle's done a full video on it, but I'm, for the sake of convenience, gonna throw a clip in here just so you can have my thoughts back to back to back. Let's go. Yeah, this thing has an expansive interior, I'll tell you what. And it definitely feels a bit more boaty, I would say. But this has the air suspension, feels proper. I love being able to get in here and adjust my vents. I know that's like maybe less cool than the digital vents from the other Panameras, but I appreciate that, honestly. Once again, Kyle has a video already having done the E-Hybrid Coupe, but this is the spicier one. So I'm not going to spend as much time on E-Power mode, the electric mode, but wanting to compare it to the Panamera is really what I want to look at. And it's similar, it feels comparable, but again, this is a Tiptronic instead of the PDK. The PDK is just so incredibly quick and smooth, and compared to that, this, I can feel the shifts a bit more, and they don't feel quite as subdued. But that's okay, because honestly, this feels more SUV. The Panamera, I just want to be like a saloon or station wagon, shooting brake, whatever you want to call it. And just like the Panamera, pulling the paddle behind the steering wheel will immediately throw on the engine. But that's what it does, and that's fine. That's the way the engineers designed it for a reason, I imagine. I just don't know the exact reason. Hopefully I can ask an engineer at some point. There we go, now it's back into electric only. And now I can stomp it to the false floor. That's roughly 40% throttle, and just drive it like normal. Probably the slowest shade. I wonder what's faster, 0 to 60 on electric mode or the shade closing. That would be an interesting comparison. Throw it into Sport Plus. The engine wakes up immediately. The screaming twin turbo V8. So that's the big difference between what Kyle had in the Cayenne Coupe versus this Turbo S E-Hybrid. Oh my gosh. An SUV shouldn't go this fast. Oh, and those brakes are so good. That was the only thing I feel like I noticed a little bit of in the previous Panameras was if you are getting faster, which they are capable of plenty of speed, the brakes aren't quite as pinchy as this. These are monster brakes. That combination of electric torque, at which point the turbos are now spooled up and then they take over and run the engine and make you feel things. Like, sure, electric SUVs are also thrilling and exciting, and the addition of the V8 noises are crazy. Now, you don't have quite as much turbo noise with the V8 as I could tell from the 4S Panamera, for example, because, I don't know, the engine's just naturally louder, shoutier, and the turbos are still there, but comparatively speaking, they're not quite as prominent. But having that extra little electric power is just wild. And though the air suspension is on full firm right now, it doesn't feel quite as planted as the Panamera would. But that's just naturally, this is a higher center of gravity. It's an SUV, it's a bit taller, it's a bit more ground clearance, and that's just all part of it, as they say. Through the chicane here. Wow, it handles bumps really well. The Panamera on some of these bumps felt a little bit like, wow, what are you doing to me? But this is like, oh, I'm an SUV. This is fine. What more could you possibly want? 670 horsepower. I think that makes this the second most powerful car in Porsche's combustion influenced lineup. I know it's electrified, but it's also combustion. Second most powerful. Oh, did you want something spicier? Well, the Porsche Panamera Turbo S E-Hybrid has you covered. 690 horsepower, 640 or 50 pound-feet of torque. Ridiculous power. Same engine and drivetrain as the Cayenne Turbo S E-Hybrid, but slightly different tuning, plus this has a PDK, so that probably is why the horsepower and torque numbers are slightly different. But this is insanely powerful. I think it's like the most powerful car in Porsche's lineup other than the Cayenne Turbo S. This thing rips. Let me show you around. In this beautiful chalk color, prices tested, this one is about $206,000. That's a steep price tag, but you get a lot. Big 21-inch wheels, huge brakes. I mean, that's insane. Of course, your E-Hybrid badge on the side, just like all the other ones, with the kind of neon color behind it. I love that that's kind of the, I don't know, the electrification color from Porsche. And being the Panamera, again, it is pretty spacious. You actually get a decent amount of storage, I think about 17 cubic feet. So yeah, this is like ridiculous sports car power with plenty of storage, so that's very nice. This is specialized with the Porsche Sport exhaust in black. Looks very good, sounds very good. The interior is black leather with 4-zone climate control, nice screen there for your rear occupants, and really nice sport seats. Love this, lots of carbon fiber. This also has a carbon fiber package in the interior. Nice panoramic glass roof, fairly panoramic. Excuse me. Yeah, Panamera is the name of the car, that's right. But yeah, really cool to see glass above the passengers in the rear, they will appreciate that. So with the Panamera Turbo S E-Hybrid, you have the same powertrain on the electric side as the other SE hybrid versions. It's all E-hybrid with 134 horsepower capable electric motor. So what's the big difference with this? It is the twin turbo V8. Yeah, I just want to drive this. So let's go drive it. So we've already done lots of driving with E-hybrids today, but I thought this would be kind of the cream of the crop as far as the very last one, because it is the most expensive, the most powerful, and maybe the most fun. Of course, like all the rest, the e-power mode, it's fantastic. Good calibration with the pedal, just like everything else. There's nothing new with that. It's the same system overall. But what really sets this apart is when you push past the kickdown switch, the engine just totally takes over. Oh my gosh. Sport Plus. Oh man. Suspension stiffens up. Everything's ready to go. And it just lets all hell break loose. Nearly 700 horsepower in a sedan. If you had told people we'd be here when the first Cayenne, or the first Panamera came out, they would think you're insane. I'm kind of at a loss for words because this is just fun. Don't get me wrong, I love Taycan. I mean, Taycan is to me like peak car. But there's just something about the notes of a twin turbo V8 filling your cabin, plus the electrification. For many people, this is kind of a sweet spot. That peak power, peak performance, but also the electric when you want to have it. And for petrol heads, perhaps, this is probably a really good sweet spot. For people who have, say, typical city commuting, and this would fit their lifestyle, whether it's a 10-15 mile commute one way, round trip, or you have charging at work and at home, you can really make this work to your advantage and stay mostly electric on your mileage. And then take it out in the canyons with the engine and let it just rip and sing and make yourself happy and make everyone else happy that hears you. Yeah! Tires squeal. They can't help but yell. The pop on every upshift. Things are flying around in the back seat. That blend of hybrid technology and turbos is so brilliant. Because you can feel the electrification picking up the slack where there's turbo lag. And there's really not much turbo lag in this car, by the way. This is just, like that sweet spot. Like some people have gone the whole super turbo route where it's supercharging and turbocharging and they kind of blend together where one lacks energy. This is like the new version of that. The supercharger now being replaced by electrification and then the turbos for all of that really high-end power. Anyways, thanks for joining in on the Porsche e-hybrid tour, if you will, of their entire e-hybrid lineup. They have a lot of vehicles with the e-hybrid badging. Of course, you have Cayenne Coupe and Panamera with Sport Turismo, or the Executive Extended one, or this Panamera sedan. I love them all. What do you think? What would you buy? I don't know if you can necessarily go wrong. There's an e-hybrid for everyone, as they say. See you guys in the next one.